management, and that is incident records versus problem records. And before we even discuss the record aspect, because recording and monitoring is a huge part of incident management, we want to define the difference between incidences and problems, okay? Well, we've already defined incidences, but a problem, this is a very important factor, a problem is the unknown underlying cause of one or more incidences. So think about it. Problems cause incidences, okay? Incidences or incidents do not become problems. Very important to realize. For example, I mentioned earlier that one disk in a mirrored disk configuration fails. Okay, if a disk fails, that is an incident, but the problem is the underlying cause of the incident. For example, is it a misconfiguration of the fault-tolerant solution? Is it a problem with the hardware or software aspect of the disk mirroring? So the problem is the underlying cause, typically unknown. So another example here, okay? An incident, let's say your workstation won't start up. So you get a call from a user to the service desk, workstation won't start up. What's the problem? Well, perhaps you need to replace the power supply. Let's say this is going on in multiple workstations in a large organization in a 2-week period. Well, when you rolled out your new systems, maybe you had a bunch of bad power supplies. So the whole problem management aspect is a whole different IT service altogether. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk in an upcoming Nugget movie about problem management specifically. Or let's say a user or a customer can't reach a network printer. That's an incident. Okay, a problem might be, let's say, a rogue DHCP server that's in your organization leasing out bad IP addresses. So when we talk about the records, okay, incident records are going to be end user focused, okay, end user or customer focused. The reporting management of incidences is going to focus on measurements, measuring user downtime, measuring power user downtime, and the impact on our business or our organization. A problem record, on the other hand, is going to start with an IT management decision to invest IT resources. For example, taking personnel off of the service desk and putting them on an infrastructure crisis, or investing in new power supplies, or new software solutions that identify rogue DHCP servers, wireless or wired. Maybe a new fault-tolerant solution, okay? These are the problem records, okay? They are management decisions to make investments of resources and the aspect of end-user downtime for root cause investigation. What is the root cause of the incidences, okay? And the implementation of a resolution. A problem record is going to focus on an IT internal process, where an incident record is going to focus on an end user. Management reporting on problems is going to focus on root causes and implementing structural or infrastructure resolutions. Hopefully those differentiations make sense to you, and we'll look at problems here in an upcoming Nugget movie. As an incident manager, when you're putting together your service desk solution and incident handling, this is a typical incident life cycle that you're going to work from. The first process, the first step in the process is to detect and record. This is the original acceptance of an incident to the service desk, to the first tier. Okay, the incident's detected somehow either through automated software procedures or through a call to the service desk. And at that point, an incident record is going to be created, and of course that's going to go right into a database, maybe an Oracle or a Microsoft SQL Server database. Then in the second step, we're going to go through a process of classifying and supporting. Now, the classification can occur using a script. The service desk can ask certain questions, and based on the answers to those questions, the service desk personnel or an application can classify the incident. For example, is it a software issue, is it a hardware issue, or is it a service request? So it's coded by the type of incident, its status, its impact on the organization, okay? Is it urgent? Is it critical? What's its priority? How does it relate to a service level agreement? Think of the concept of a person coming into an emergency room or a triage. You kind of categorize them into one of three categories by priority. Do they have a life-threatening illness or a life-threatening condition or injury? They get moved to the top of the line. Is it a serious injury but not one that's life-threatening that if they don't get immediate care, they're going to expire? Well, they get moved down in the priority list. Or perhaps it's just something like a minor cut that needs stitches that can be handled an hour from now, or you can move them on or pass them on to some other department. So you kind of have that approach. What's the impact on your organization? What's the urgency? You're going to kind of build a system that estimates the usage of resources, people, resources, time, and that can be put them into a low, medium, or high priority. And part of this also goes into, as far as impact, how much time does it take to handle the incident? Critical, it needs to be taken care of in less than an hour. A high priority needs to be taken care of in less than 8 hours. Medium priority or low priority, less than 24 or 48 hours. Again, these are guidelines that you can use to put your incident system into place. At that point, the user may be given suggestions from the service desk, either based on a script or based on expertise, to solve the incident or work around the issue, even if it's just a temporary solution. Now, if it's a service request, talked about these things earlier, if it's a service request, then at this point, we're going to go off kind of into a different process, as a service request doesn't involve investigating and diagnosing or troubleshooting a problem. A service request, here I'll just put SR, is going to go through a different process. The service request procedure that's put in place by the organization. For example, recover a password, let's say. Investigation and diagnosis, if there's no known solution at that particular first tier, then the incident's going to be investigated, either further by that group, or it could go through an escalation process. Once you find a solution, the issue can then be resolved and the system can be recovered. And again, this step must take place. There must be some type of resolution to the incident. Even if the resolution to the incident is to move this over into the problem and change management area of IT services to implement some type of infrastructure change where resources have to be allocated and systems have to be replaced or updated. Okay, so there has to be some type of resolution here. Once that's put in place, then we've got closure. Everybody wants closure, okay, in a relationship, in life, and of course in incident life cycles. The users ask if they're satisfied with the solution, and then you close the incident. There may be some follow-up, maybe through a survey or a questionnaire to help improve this process. Now realize all along the way, and I don't really have this written down here, but all along the way, there should be kind of an offshoot from each one of these steps of the life cycle. And this offshoot should be an ongoing tracking process and progress monitoring. Okay, so along every step of the way, you're going to have either some real-time live monitoring and tracking of the process. For example, when you make a phone call to a service desk and you hear, this call may be monitored for quality assurance, okay? You have that type of thing, or maybe you have a software solution in place. So tracking and progress monitoring is working in parallel all along the way. Now, I've already alluded to incident escalation, and I've mentioned that there is a horizontal escalation and a vertical escalation. Let me just kind of give you, before we define those two things, let me kind of give you just a basic flow chart of what could happen in your organization when you're escalating incidents. So what we have here is, first of all, we have our Tier 1, our first line support, and I'll just draw a line here. So we know our first step is to detect and record the incident. Now, that's going to come in the form of some type of request. That could be a request from a user, from a customer, from a system. It could be an application. It could be another service desk agent. It could be someone in another IT department. Now, if it's a service request, let's say it's a new employee who needs their account set up and information on how to use their new laptop, well, that would be a service request. So that's going to be an offshoot here to what we call a service request procedure. So I'll just put an SR here for service request. If it's a hardware